The wedding ring made a soft ping when it hit the asphalt, bouncing twice before rolling into the storm drain. I watched from my truck, parked 3 blocks away with a perfect view through the telephoto lens Dana had lent me. My wife, Rebecca, didn't even look back as she climbed into the silver Mercedes. The man behind the wheel leaned over to kiss her, not a peck, but the kind of kiss that said they'd done this 100 times before. I lowered the camera and checked the timestamp. 11:47 p.m., Saturday, October 14th. The same night she'd told me she was working late on the Meridian Hospital project. The same project that didn't exist. I'd checked the city permits 3 times. My hands were steady as I started the engine. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids, and a mortgage we'd almost paid off. Rebecca had always been good at details, meticulous with her work as a lobbyist for Patterson and Associates. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd forgotten that I design bridges for a living. I know how to spot structural weaknesses before they cause a collapse. The drive home took 12 minutes. Rebecca's BMW wasn't in the garage yet. She'd need time to get back from wherever she was going with him. I had maybe an hour to prepare. I uploaded the photos to 3 separate cloud accounts, printed copies on our home printer, and sealed them in an envelope marked with today's date. Then I sat at the kitchen table and opened a beer, waiting. The garage door rumbled at 1:23 a.m. Rebecca came in through the laundry room, her heels clicking on the tile. She moved quietly, probably thinking I was asleep. "Hey," I called from the kitchen. She froze in the doorway, purse clutched against her chest. "Oh, you scared me. What are you doing up?" "Couldn't sleep. How was the office?" Rebecca's smile was practiced, automatic. "Exhausting. We're behind on the Meridian documentation. Had to pull an all-nighter." She kissed my forehead, and I caught a whiff of cologne that wasn't mine. "I'm going to shower and head to bed." "Sure thing. I'll be up in a minute." I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, then the sound of running water. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Dana. "You okay? It's late." I typed back, "Found what I was looking for. Need to talk tomorrow." The next morning, Rebecca made coffee and scrambled eggs like it was any other Sunday. She wore the silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked beautiful, relaxed, happy. "The Henderson project got approved," I said, buttering my toast. "Bridge construction starts next month." "That's wonderful, honey. You've worked so hard on that design." "Yeah. Funny thing about bridges. You can't cut corners on the foundation. 1 weak support beam and the whole thing comes down." Rebecca paused with her coffee cup halfway to her lips. "What do you mean?" "Just thinking about structural integrity, how everything has to be honest, transparent, no hidden weaknesses." She set down her cup, watching my face. "Are you feeling okay? You seem off." "I'm fine. Just tired. Maybe I should start working late more often, like you." The words hung in the air between us. Rebecca's smile flickered, but she recovered quickly. "If you want, though I'd rather spend evenings together when we can." Our kids, Emma and Jake, thundered downstairs demanding pancakes. I made them while Rebecca read the newspaper, the picture of domestic normalcy. But I could feel her eyes on me, calculating. After breakfast, I called Dana. "Michael's Hardware, South Parking Lot, 20 minutes, she said without preamble. Dana had been a prosecutor before switching to corporate law. She understood the value of secure locations. I found her leaning against her Jeep, designer sunglasses hiding her expression. Dana was 3 years younger than me but looked older, stress lines from too many hostile takeovers and divorce proceedings. "Show me," she said. I handed her the envelope. She flipped through the photos methodically, her face revealing nothing. "When? Last night, I followed her from the office." "Do you know who he is?" "Richard Holloway, senior partner at Patterson and Associates. Married, 2 kids in private school. Lives in Willowbrook Estates." Dana whistled low. "You've been busy. How long do you think this has been going on?" "Best guess? 6 months, maybe longer. She started working late in April, right after the firm landed the biotech contract." "The Gentech Industries deal?" Dana's eyebrows rose above her sunglasses. "But that's a $300 million project." Rebecca was lead lobbyist. Lots of evening meetings, weekend conferences, out-of-state trips. "Where do you want to take this, Tom?" I'd been thinking about that question since 11:47 p.m. the night before. "I want her to understand what it feels like when your foundation crumbles." Dana nodded slowly. "This isn't going to be clean." "I don't want it to be clean." "Custody?" "Joint for now, but I want full financial disclosure. Everything." Dana pulled out her phone and made a note. I'll need complete bank records, tax returns, credit card statements. Can you get them without tipping her off? Already done. Electronic copies are in a secure folder. Rebecca keeps hard copies in her home office. Insurance policies? Updated in July. Rebecca increased her life insurance and added Richard Holloway as a business beneficiary on her professional liability policy. Dana's head snapped up. She what? Apparently, it's common in lobbying firms. Partners cover each other in case of lawsuits or professional misconduct claims. Tom, that's not standard practice. She paused, thinking. That's either incredibly stupid or incredibly suspicious. Over the next 3 weeks, I maintained perfect normalcy. I cooked dinner, helped the kids with homework, made small talk with Rebecca about her work. She seemed relieved that I wasn't asking uncomfortable questions anymore. But I was watching and learning. Rebecca's schedule became predictable. Late meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, weekend conferences twice a month. She'd started wearing new perfume and had her hair done at a more expensive salon. Small changes that meant everything. I began documenting other things too, like how she'd started receiving mail at a P.O. box downtown. I followed her there on a Thursday afternoon. Or how she'd opened a new credit card account with statements going to her office instead of our house. Dana handled the legal preparation. She found irregularities in Rebecca's lobbying disclosures, meetings that weren't properly documented, expense reports that didn't match her calendar. Nothing criminal yet, but enough to raise questions. The Gentech contract is interesting, Dana told me during one of our parking lot meetings. Rebecca filed lobbying reports claiming she met with city council members who were out of town on the dates she listed. Sloppy. Or desperate. There's something else. Richard Holloway's wife filed for legal separation 3 weeks ago. Irreconcilable differences. He's leaving his family. Looks that way. Which means this isn't just an affair anymore. They're planning a future together. That night, I confronted Rebecca. Not about the affair. Not yet. About the P.O. box. I was at the post office today and saw you coming out of the box rental section, I said over dinner. Since when do we have a P.O. box? Rebecca's fork paused halfway to her mouth. It's for work. Some clients prefer private mail delivery. Which clients? It's confidential, Tom. Attorney-client privilege. You're not an attorney. You know what I mean? Professional discretion. Jake, our 12-year-old, looked up from his spaghetti. What's attorney-client privilege? It means lawyers can't tell secrets about their clients, Emma explained, with the authority of a 14-year-old, like doctor-patient confidentiality. But Mom's not a lawyer, Jake said, confused. Rebecca's cheeks flushed. I work with lawyers, same principle. I let it go, but filed the reaction away. Rebecca was getting nervous, making mistakes. The breaking point came in November. I was reviewing city permit applications for the Henderson Bridge when I found something impossible. A lobbying disclosure form filed by Patterson and associates claiming that Thomas Wheeler, me, had attended a meeting about the Gentech project. I had never attended any such meeting. I'd never even heard of the Gentech project before Dana mentioned it. Someone had forged my signature on an official government document. I called Dana immediately. Emergency meeting. Bring everything. We met at a coffee shop in the business district, surrounded by the kind of ambient noise that made eavesdropping impossible. They used your name to legitimize a meeting that probably never happened, Dana explained, studying the document. Look at the date, November 3rd. You were in Milwaukee for the engineering conference. I have hotel receipts, flight confirmations, conference attendance records. This is fraud, Tom. Federal fraud. Whoever signed this could face serious charges. I studied the signature. It was close to mine, but not perfect. The T was too rounded, the R too angular. Rebecca's seen me sign documents 1,000 times. She knows my signature well enough to fake it. We need to be careful. If we move too fast, she'll destroy evidence. But if we wait too long, there might be other forged documents. What do you recommend? Dana was quiet for a long moment, stirring her coffee. We set a trap. Something that forces her to make a choice between protecting herself and protecting Richard. How? We make her think you're suspicious about the wrong thing. Give her a chance to throw him under the bus. That evening, I came home with flowers and Rebecca's favorite wine. She was in the kitchen making dinner, her phone propped against the backsplash while she watched cooking videos. What's the occasion? She asked, accepting the flowers with a smile that looked almost genuine. No occasion, just felt like being romantic. We ate dinner by candlelight. I complimented her dress, asked about her day, made her laugh with stories from the construction site. For a moment, it felt like old times. Then I poured more wine and leaned back in my chair. I had the strangest thing happen today. Someone at City Hall mentioned seeing a lobbying form with my name on it, said I'd attended some meeting about a biotech project. Rebecca's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Really? That's odd. I told them there must be some mistake. I've never been to a lobbying meeting in my life. Probably just paperwork confusion. You know how bureaucrats are. Yeah, that's what I figured. Though I did check with the State Lobbying Commission. They take forgery pretty seriously. Felony charges, prison time, that sort of thing. Rebecca set down her wine. Prison time? Oh yeah. Federal crime. They don't mess around with falsified government documents. But if it was just a mistake, intent matters. If someone deliberately forged a signature, that's serious. But if it was just a clerical error, probably just a fine and some embarrassment. Rebecca was quiet for the rest of dinner. After we cleaned up, she excused herself to make some work calls. I listened from the living room, but she kept her voice too low to make out words. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. Her note said she had an early meeting, but when I called Patterson and Associates at 9 a.m., the receptionist told me Rebecca wasn't expected in until afternoon. I spent the morning at Dana's office, planning our next move. She's scared, Dana said, reviewing my notes from the dinner conversation. Scared people make bad decisions. Good. I want her off balance. There's something else. I had a private investigator friend check Richard Holloway's financial records. He's been moving money around, consolidating assets. Looks like he's preparing for a messy divorce. How much money? Including his stake in Patterson and Associates? About $4 million? That's a strong motive for Rebecca. If she's thinking about leaving me for him, she needs to make sure he doesn't lose everything in his divorce. Which might explain why she's willing to commit fraud. Help him secure contracts that will maintain his firm's value. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. It was barely noon. She's meeting with him, I told Dana. Probably planning damage control. Good, let them plan. The more they scheme, the more evidence they create. I picked up the kids from school that afternoon and took them for ice cream. Emma complained about her algebra teacher, while Jake described an elaborate Lego creation he was building. Normal kid problems, normal conversations. I wanted to preserve that normalcy as long as possible. At 7 p.m., I called Rebecca. She answered on the fourth ring, background noise suggesting she was in a restaurant. Hey, she said, her voice slightly breathless. What's up? Just checking in. The kids finished their homework and they're watching a movie. When do you think you'll be home? Late. This Gentech thing is getting complicated. Legal issues. Anything I can help with? I know some good lawyers. There was a pause. No, we've got it handled. I should go. We're in the middle of something important. Sure. Love you. Love you too. But she hung up before I finished the sentence. At 11:15 p.m., I was waiting in my truck outside Richard Holloway's house in Willowbrook Estates. The silver Mercedes was in the driveway next to a black BMW, Rebecca's car. I didn't need to see more. I drove home and went to bed, setting my alarm for 5:30 a.m. Rebecca came home at 2:47 a.m. I pretended to be asleep when she slipped into bed, but I could feel her tension, the way she lay rigid beside me, trying not to disturb the sheets. The next morning, she was up before my alarm, showering and dressing quickly. Early meeting? I asked from bed. Crisis management? The Gentech contract hit some snags? Legal snags? Rebecca paused at the bedroom door. Why do you ask? Just wondering if it's related to that signature issue, the one with my name on it. No, different problem. I really need to go. She kissed my forehead and left. I waited until I heard the garage door close, then called Dana. It's time, I said. Dana had spent 2 weeks preparing. She'd documented every irregularity in Rebecca's lobbying reports, traced the forged signature to its source, and established a timeline that showed a pattern of misconduct. But she'd also done something else. She'd quietly contacted the State Lobbying Commission and the Federal Prosecutor's Office. Not to file charges, not yet, but to make them aware that potential violations might come to their attention soon. The key is documentation, Dana explained as we sat in her office that afternoon. We need Rebecca to admit what she's done, preferably in writing or on recording. How do we make that happen? We give her a choice: come clean and minimize the damage, or let everything collapse around her. Dana had prepared a folder containing copies of all the forged documents. bank records showing unexplained deposits to Rebecca's accounts, and photographs from my surveillance. Everything was legally obtained, properly documented, and devastating. "You're going to confront her tonight," Dana said, "but not at home. Too many variables with the kids around. I've reserved a conference room at the Marriott downtown. Neutral territory, private, but public enough that she can't claim coercion. What if she doesn't show? She'll show, because the alternative is having this conversation in a courtroom." I called Rebecca at 4 p.m. "We need to talk." "Tonight? I'm busy. Marriott downtown, conference room 12B, 7 o'clock. Come alone." "Tom, what's this about?" "You know what it's about?" There was a long silence. "I'll be there." I arrived early and arranged the documents on the conference table. Dana was in the next room, recording everything through a wireless microphone clipped to my shirt. Not admissible in court, but useful for our own purposes. Rebecca walked in at exactly 7 o'clock. She looked professional in a navy suit and heels, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Sit down," I said. She remained standing. "What's this about, Tom?" I slid the first photograph across the table. Rebecca and Richard kissing by the storm drain, her wedding ring mid-flight toward the asphalt. Rebecca's face went white. "Where did you get this?" "Sit down." She sat. I spread out the rest of the evidence methodically. Bank records, forged documents, hotel receipts, credit card statements, a comprehensive portrait of deception. 6 months, I said. "That's how long you've been lying to me, to our children, to the State Lobbying Commission, and to the federal government." Rebecca's hands shook as she picked up one of the forged signature documents. "Tom, I can explain." "You used my name to legitimize fake meetings. You accepted money for lobbying services you never performed. You filed false reports with state agencies. Any one of these is a felony." "It's not what it looks like." "Rebecca." My voice was calm, controlled. "I'm a civil engineer. I know how to read blueprints, how to spot structural flaws, how to identify points of failure. Your story has more holes than a bridge I'd condemn." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I love him." "I know. It wasn't supposed to happen. We were working together, spending so much time on the Gentech project, and you were always busy with your bridges." "Stop." I held up a hand. "I don't care about the affair. I care about the fraud." Rebecca looked up, confused. "What?" "The adultery is between you and me. But the moment you forged my signature on government documents, you made me an unwilling participant in federal crimes. That's where this becomes bigger than just a marriage problem. I was trying to protect the contract. Richard said..." "Richard said what?" Rebecca wiped her eyes, smearing makeup. "He said we needed to show broader community support for the Gentech project. Having a civil engineer's endorsement would carry weight with the zoning committee." "So he told you to forge my signature." "He said it was just a formality, that you probably support the project anyway if you knew about it." I made a note on my legal pad. "Whose idea was it to open the P.O. box?" "Richard's. He said we needed private communication channels for sensitive negotiations." "And the separate credit card?" "Richard said I should keep business expenses separate from personal ones, for tax purposes." Every answer implicated Richard more deeply. I could see Rebecca starting to understand the trap she'd walked into. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, pulling out a document Dana had prepared. "You're going to sign a full confession detailing every forged document, every false report, and every illegal payment. You're going to cooperate completely with any investigation, and you're going to resign from Patterson and Associates effective immediately." Rebecca read the confession, her face growing paler with each paragraph. "If I sign this, I'll lose everything. My career, my reputation. You lost those the moment you decided to commit fraud. And if I don't sign..." I slid another document across the table. "Then I file criminal complaints with the state attorney general, the federal prosecutor, and the lobbying commission. I turn over all this evidence and let them sort it out. Which means Richard goes down with you." Rebecca stared at the papers for a long time. "You're destroying my life." "No, I'm offering you a choice. Take responsibility for what you've done and minimize the damage, or let everything collapse and take Richard with you. This isn't about the fraud. This is about Richard." "You're right. This is about Richard. Because he convinced the woman I married for 22 years to commit felonies for his benefit. He turned you into a criminal." Rebecca's hands trembled as she picked up the pen. "What happens to us? To our marriage?" Our marriage ended the night you threw your wedding ring in a storm drain. She signed the confession. The next morning, Rebecca submitted her resignation to Patterson and Associates. She cited personal reasons and a desire to pursue other opportunities. Richard called her 17 times that day. I know because I was monitoring her phone records through our shared account. She finally answered the 18th call while I was picking up the kids from school. He's furious, she told me that evening. He says I'm abandoning him, that we're supposed to be partners. Are you? Partners? Rebecca laughed bitterly. Tommy threw me under the bus the second things got complicated, claimed he never asked me to forge anything, never suggested the P.O. box, never knew about the false reports. But you have documentation. Some. Not enough to prove he was the mastermind. Then you better hope the prosecutors believe your confession over his denials. Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca tried to rebuild bridges. With me, with the kids, with her sister who'd stopped taking her calls. She cooked elaborate dinners, planned family activities, bought expensive gifts none of us wanted. I know I messed up, she said one night as we cleaned dishes together. But we can fix this. Go to counseling, take a vacation, start over. Rebecca, you committed federal crimes. There's no starting over from that. The confession was enough. Dana said the prosecutors probably won't file charges if I cooperate and make restitution. That's not the point. Then what is the point? I dried my hands on the kitchen towel and looked at her directly. The point is that I spent 22 years married to someone I thought I knew. Someone honest, principled, trustworthy. It turns out I was married to a stranger who was willing to commit felonies for a man she'd known 6 months. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a series of deliberate choices over months. You chose Richard over our family every single time. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. So what happens now? Now we figure out custody and property division. Dana's already drawn up the paperwork. You want a divorce? I want our children to have stability and honest parents. I can only guarantee one of those things. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Rebecca's confession made it impossible for her to argue for alimony or claim financial hardship. She'd been earning money through fraudulent means, which voided her income claims. The house, which we owned jointly, would be sold and the proceeds split. But since Rebecca couldn't demonstrate legitimate income for the past 6 months, her share would be held in escrow pending resolution of the restitution claims. Richard, meanwhile, was facing his own problems. His wife's divorce attorney had subpoenaed his business records and found irregularities that matched Rebecca's confession. The State Lobbying Commission launched a formal investigation into Patterson and Associates. But Richard wasn't going down quietly. He called me on a Tuesday evening in December, 3 months after the conference room confrontation. We need to talk, he said without preamble. I don't think we do. Your wife destroyed both our lives. The least you can do is hear me out. My ex-wife. And I don't owe you anything. 30 minutes. The Barnes and Noble Cafe on 5th Street. Come alone. Something in his voice made me agree. I called Dana first, told her where I was going and when to expect me back. Richard was waiting in a corner booth, looking like he'd aged 5 years and 3 months. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt. The confident lobbyist I'd researched was gone, replaced by a desperate man facing financial ruin. She set us both up, he said, as I sat down. Explain. Rebecca, this whole thing was her idea? The forged signatures, the false reports, the offshore accounts, all her plan. Offshore accounts? Richard's eyes widened. You don't know about the offshore accounts? What offshore accounts? Rebecca opened accounts in the Cayman Islands. Been moving money there for months. I thought you knew. I thought that's why you exposed her. I kept my expression neutral, but my mind was racing. Show me. Richard slid a folder across the table. Bank statements, wire transfer records, account opening documents, all with Rebecca's signature. She said it was for tax purposes, Richard continued. Moving money through offshore accounts to avoid reporting requirements on the lobbying payments. I studied the documents. If they were genuine, Rebecca had hidden almost $200,000 from me, from the divorce proceedings and from the IRS. Why are you showing me this? Because she's destroyed both of us, and she's going to get away with it. The prosecutors think I was the mastermind, but look at the dates. She opened these accounts before we even started working together closely. You're saying she planned this from the beginning. I'm saying she's smarter than either of us gave her credit for, and more ruthless. I photographed every document with my phone, then handed the folder back. What do you want from me? Help me prove she was the architect. In exchange, I'll make sure you get the offshore money in the divorce settlement. No deal? Richard looks shocked. Why not? Because you're both criminals. The fact that she might be a smarter criminal doesn't make you innocent. I left him at the cafe and drove straight to Dana's office. If these documents are real, Dana said after reviewing the photos, Rebecca committed tax evasion, money laundering, and perjury in addition to the fraud charges. Are they real? I'll need to verify them, but they look genuine. The question is whether we use this information or let Richard hang himself with it. What do you mean? If Richard goes to prosecutors with this evidence, he'll probably reduce his own sentence by exposing Rebecca as the mastermind. But that means Rebecca goes to prison and your kids lose their mother. And if we don't use it, Rebecca gets away with stealing $200,000 and Richard probably serves minimal time for fraud. I thought about Emma and Jake, about the impact of having a mother in federal prison, but I also thought about 22 years of marriage built on lies, about forged signatures and hidden accounts, and a woman who'd chosen greed over family. We use it, I said. The final confrontation happened in February in Dana's conference room. Rebecca had been summoned for additional divorce proceedings, supposedly to finalize the property division. She arrived wearing the same navy suit from our first confrontation, but she looked smaller now, diminished. Dana spread Richard's documents across the table methodically. Bank statements, wire transfers, account opening forms, the complete financial picture of Rebecca's deception. Rebecca's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally, cold calculation. "Where did you get these?" she asked quietly. "Your partner decided to save himself," I said. "Threw you under the bus just like you knew he would." "Richard gave you these?" "Complete financial records, dates, amounts, account numbers, plus his testimony that the offshore accounts were your idea." Rebecca picked up one of the bank statements, studying it carefully. "He's lying." "About what?" "The accounts were his idea. He said we needed to hide assets from his wife's divorce attorney." "Do you have proof of that?" Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened her purse and pulled out a small digital recorder. "I recorded our conversations," she said. "All of them. From the very beginning." Dana and I exchanged glances. Why? Because I didn't trust him. Richard was already cheating on his wife with me. What made me think he wouldn't cheat on me with someone else? "So you have recordings of him instructing you to commit fraud?" "Hours of recordings, planning sessions, strategy meetings, arguments about money. Everything." I leaned back in my chair. After 6 months of revelation and betrayal, my ex-wife had managed to surprise me one more time. "What do you want, Rebecca?" "Immunity. Full immunity from prosecution in exchange for the recordings." "And in return?" "Richard goes to prison. I keep the offshore money as compensation for what he put me through. We split everything else 50-50 and I get joint custody of the kids." I looked at Dana, who was scribbling notes furiously. "Counteroffer," I said. "You turn over the recordings and cooperate fully with prosecutors. You serve whatever sentence they recommend. The offshore money goes into a trust for Emma and Jake's college education. You get supervised visitation until they're 18. That's not a negotiation, that's a surrender." "No, Rebecca. A surrender would be me walking away and letting you and Richard destroy each other in court while your children watch. This is me giving you a chance to do one honest thing for our family." Rebecca stared at the documents scattered across the table, the evidence of months of lies, manipulation, and greed. Finally, she reached into her purse again and pulled out a small silver device. "There are dozens of recordings on here," she said, setting the recorder on the table. "Richard planned everything. I was lonely and stupid, and I thought he loved me." "But you went along with it." "Yes, I went along with it." Dana picked up the recorder. "We'll need to authenticate these before they can be used as evidence." "They're real," Rebecca said. Every word. 6 months later, Richard Holloway was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering. Patterson and Associates dissolved, its partners fleeing to other firms or early retirement. Rebecca received 18 months in minimum security prison, followed by 2 years of supervised release. The offshore accounts, totaling $347,000, were liquidated and placed in trust for Emma and Jake. I bought a smaller house in a better school district. The kids adjusted better than I'd expected. Children are remarkably resilient when they have stability and honesty, even if it comes with difficult truths. On a Saturday morning in September, almost a year after that first photograph by the storm drain, I was helping Jake with a Lego architecture set, the Sydney Harbor Bridge. Emma was at the kitchen table doing algebra homework. "Dad," Jake said, holding up two plastic pieces. "This part doesn't fit right." I examined the pieces. One had a small manufacturing defect that prevented proper connection. "Sometimes pieces look like they should go together, but they're actually incompatible," I told him. "The best thing to do is find pieces that are designed to work together." "What do I do with the broken piece?" "Set it aside. Maybe we'll find a use for it in a different project." Jake nodded and went back to building. Outside, it was starting to rain, a gentle autumn shower that would wash the streets clean and fill the storm drains. I thought about wedding rings and hidden accounts, about the difference between structural flaws and catastrophic failures. Some bridges collapse because of poor design. Others fall because someone cuts corners, uses substandard materials, or ignores safety protocols. But the best bridges are built on solid foundations with honest materials and careful engineering. They're designed to weather storms, support heavy loads, and last for generations. That's the kind of foundation I wanted to build for my children.